Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
No more PCR!
No more PCR!
No more PCR!
No more PCR!
No more PCR. That's what around 150 protesters were calling for at a protest I recently covered. And you'll find out why in this report. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and in case you didn't already know it, COVID-19 cases determined by the PCR test are sometimes a crapshoot. The test becomes unreliable depending on what threshold is used, and even when someone really does test positive from it, that positive test result can't even prove if that person is actually infected. Odessa Orowitz from the online social media channel called Liberty Talks has had enough with the lack of transparency regarding the PCR test and set out to organize a peaceful protest in the downtown Vancouver area to raise awareness for why the PCR test needs to stop being used to determine our country's cases. Now, she's far from alone. For months now, here at Rebel News, we've shed light on the elephant in the room that is the PCR test. And in one report, I interviewed frontline doctor and microbiologist Dr. Shuktareet Bhakti, and he said this.
This PCR test has to be stopped. It's got to be trashed. Otherwise, we'll never get out of this mess.
And now, even the World Health Organization has released a long overdue update citing the problem with the PCR tests, stating that users now are advised to follow the instructions for use when interpreting results for specimens tested using PCR methodology. Why? Because if the cycle thresholds used to detect the virus with the PCR are not in the correct range, the disease prevalence alters the predictive value of test results. And as disease prevalence decreases, the risk of false positives increases. So why still no transparency from our political health lords regarding this? Comment below and let me know why you think that is. And go ahead and check out the No More PCR protest.
No more PCR!
No more PCR!
Cases are baseless!
Odessa, this was your baby, this protest here today. Why was it important to meet and gather about this?
Well, the only thing that's holding, the line between people who are not joining our movement and people who are is the fallacy of the PCR test. The PCR test, the inventor said it should never be used for coronavirus and viruses like coronavirus to say that you're ill and you're spreading something. It's just testing for fragments of things that are in you, and you certainly should never, ever, ever amplify it. This is all science-based. You can find the information. They're trying to suppress it, but anything over 25 cycling, over 25 amplifying is going to be extremely fraudulent. It's going to be up to 90% false positives. And in fact, because there's lawsuits against the WHO all over the world, they finally admitted a few days ago, which I'm sure you saw, obviously, whoops, yeah, so hey guys, we should be not amplifying it over 25. They finally said that, so we said, yay, the WHO has come clean, so Canada can stop cycling it at 40, and Canada is cycling it at 40 and 45 in Ontario, and so they're upping the amplification to keep us locked down. This is a crime against humanity, and I thought we were told to listen to the WHO. Even Facebook says make sure...
Only when it's convenient.
Only when it's convenient. So we've been told on Facebook, don't post anything that doesn't go with the WHO narrative. Well, now our politicians have to say, whoops, the WHO is advised not to amplify over 25. But if they do that, they won't get the cases they need to continue to lock us down for the true agenda.
Take away your rights and freedoms!
Takes away your rights and freedoms!
Do not consent!
Do not consent!
The PCR test is totally unreliable. Kerry Mullis, a developer of the PCR test, said it himself. So we are completely perplexed as to why this test continues to be used. So why do you think we don't hear more about this side of the test from Dr. Bonnie Henry? Because it goes against the mainstream narrative. For some reason, they want to keep going on that one-sided story, and it's not right. I would have a little more respect for her if she told both sides of the story and allow people to make their own decisions.
Well, I'm here personally because of the fact that the PCR test has been proven to be 70 to 90% inaccurate. So if we're basing shutdowns and having to wear masks based on this, I think that it needs to be looked at again and scrapped.
Why do you think it's taken so long for the World Health Organization to finally, say that there are some things that need to be tweaked about this test?
Well, they think they've got it under control with their agenda and their plans that they have. But there's so many people that are recognizing this.
A test is 90% false positive. The media is lying to you. Your government is lying to you and does not care about you. The PCR test is now being said that this can be done as an anal swab. And no, this is not a joke. Are you going to literally bend over for your government like this?
It's all being used to shut down our country. I know more people who have committed suicide or died from drug overdose. I know people that are in abusive situations that are getting escalated because the PCR test is literally being the gauge for whether or not our country shuts down. People's businesses are going down the toilet right now, and it's all being based off this PCR test with a 90% false positive rate. If we've got cases are baseless, if we're using a test that's for that purpose, and the producer of, the inventor of the PCR test is actually telling us or has told us that we shouldn't be using this tool for the testing that we're using it for, then why are we using it? Why are we not listening to that? We're using it for a means to shut down our country, and it's wrong. It's wrong by the inventor says it's wrong, that we're showing that we've got 90% false positives. Why are we still using it?
There's always an opportunity for justice. Like today, it's a big one. And when you feel down or depressed or anxious, like we'll never change things, just keep your optimism, because there's always a moment where things are going to get better, and they always do.
The PCR test showed up, I guess, in the summer, right? It wasn't when I started the movement in April. I didn't know what the PCR test was. I work with scientists now in the States who are right on top of this. They're doing the cutting edge science around this and exposing it, and they're setting up a new lab. But it looks like they're going to drop the PCR and they're moving to a rapid test. Have you heard that?
I've actually had a rapid test done. Yes, I have. It took 3 minutes to tell me if I've had COVID ever, which at the time I had not.
Yeah, so maybe that's going to be the new thing. Trudeau just announced PCR testing in every airport, like a Tim Hortons or like ATMs. So that would probably be the rapid system, right?
So why is this march here important?
Well, it's to expose the fraud of the media lying to us constantly, using, a fraudulent test to essentially, I think, keep everybody afraid, keep everybody from traveling. And the greatest crime that's really been committed is by the media. As you know, you work in media, because we never had them saying anything objectively or two sides to this story ever in 11 months.
Do you think it has anything to do with the journalists not knowing about all the complications as far as using the PCR test to determine if people are infected by COVID?
Well, good question, right? Okay, so I would say two things, and I've worked in media for 30 years. The young people who are on the scene now, I don't think they're investigative journalists whatsoever. They're not researching. They're not motivated to, they're not rewarded to do that. And all of the media companies in Canada are owned by huge corporations. Two of them have major shareholding down in with hedge funds and private equity down in the States. So it's not journalism anymore. It's content, it's media, it's white paper stories. So I don't even think of it as journalism.
PCR! No more PCR!
Cases are faceless!
Cases are baseless!
No more PCR. Cases are baseless. That's what the crowd behind me is chanting in front of what I'm told is CTV's new studio, which is located on Robson and Burrard. So I don't know, will it make a difference? The World Health Organization has mentioned that things need to be tweaked with the test in order to make it more reliable. The problem with that is they've taken months, an entire 10 months, to tell the world that, and even so, it is heavily underreported by mainstream media. Why do you think we're standing in front of what I'm told is CTV's new studio? Why is that happening?
Well, I don't know, Drea, if you've ever listened to the news for 2 minutes, I get depressed myself. You know, the enablers are the news. They are the media, the mainstream media, who are constantly instilling fear through lies. And the fact is the PCR test has a potential of a 90% false positive. So we're here today to tell the media to stop spreading lies and to tell the truth, to be true journalists like you guys are doing here today, and to actually cover the story and report the facts.
Instead of calling you guys anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, and neo-Nazis, right?
Right, we're not anti-anything. We're pro-health, we're pro-humans, we're pro-choice. If you want to come down and support us and wear a mask, wear a mask. You want to come down here without pants, don't wear pants. We are here, we are pro-choice, and we're pro-humanity and pro-community.
We just saw a bunch of cars go by with signs that were anti-CCP on top of them, and they seem to be very supportive of this rally. You saw that happen. What's your opinion as to why they're in support of this No More PCR protest?
Yeah, I saw that too, and I thought that was pretty amazing. It wasn't coordinated. There was about 6 or 7 cars that had anti-CCP, and I think they know who's running this country, who owns this country. You know, we've been selling our national resources and all our big corporations for many years, and people who live in China and who are familiar with the CCP, they understand how it works. And they're here to say, we've seen it, you got to oppose it, stand up, and yeah, we're not for it. So we appreciate the support today.
We've written to Global News. Global News says, hey guys, hey Canadians, send us your inquiries. Bonnie's coming on today. Send us all your questions. Did you know they got 1,250 people ask, why are you amplifying this test at 40? They will not respond because they know that we are right.
And in the middle of the march, you guys stopped, or we stopped, I was with you, in front of CTV. Why?
Well, we stopped in front of CTV because it's a busy area, and unfortunately they're kind of moving, so they're kind of there and around the corner, so it's not that effective in that they're kind of hidden now. But we did that because CTV is doing coverage of our movements that's completely false. Trump lovers, racists, fascists. I don't know how people that don't want to be locked down are fascists. Anyway, so they're continually lying. They're all paid off by Trudeau, and they're not giving the truth. We write to the TV stations. We write to Bonnie Henry. Why are you amplifying this test? Why are you not covering one of the biggest announcements the WHO did about amplification? They ignore us, and they just continue to say cases, cases, cases. And in fact, as soon as the WHO announced we're over amplifying here, it's showing too many cases in Canada at 40, all of a sudden Trudeau comes on and says, I'm locking you down further.
Why is it that we're marching to CTV?
I think we just want to stand in front of CTV and we're going to talk about the PCR and some truths about the PCR test. Just to, I guess because they're always at our rallies also. And they tend to twist a little bit of what they film. So now we're just going to speak some truth.
Why are we walking to CTV?
I think it's because we need to get our message out, and hopefully they will hear us and see us.
I mean, I think it's a fair question. Why is that happening? Now, why was part of the march gathered? Why did they stop and gather in front of CTV?
Because the media lies. The media, you know what? You are real news. Odessa is real news. Laura Lynn is real news. Dan Dix is real news. That's where people need to start tuning into, because you guys dig and you guys get the truth from the public. You know, this is the CTV, CBC, they're all lying. They're lying about us. They've already put out letters saying that we are racist and fascist, and that's not what this group is about by any means at all. We just want our freedom. And we're using a test to gauge how much freedom we're allowed to have.
At Rebel News, we are doing everything we can to help preserve the freedoms and sanity of Canadians, but we need your help. One of the ways that we are doing this is by providing free lawyers to help the Canadians who have been detained in one of Justin Trudeau's COVID jails after flying back to Canada and trying to go home. These citizens are scared, and rightfully so, and we need your help to keep connecting those who reach out to us with the legal help that they need. So please donate what you can at nocovidjails.com.